Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about Fetch.ai, which is actually merging to become the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance, but currently they remain under the name of Fetch.ai because they used to be just Fetch, and then they also had Ocean Protocol and Singularity Net, but they've all combined and decided to merge together to develop the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and get into kind of what this means, what it could do for the crypto space overall, things like that. But before we get into that, I did want to go over just a super quick update with like leverage and liquidations and all this type of stuff with what we've been seeing in the market. And then we can go on to talk about the subject of the day, which is Fetch. So starting out, we can see here on the Bitcoin liquidation map, there is definitely a short-term bias, I would say, toward the downside. We did just have that pretty decent pump. We've got a pretty nice pump in the overall market, just overall at this point. We'll get into that more in a second. But we can see on the 7 and then the 30-day, still a bit more of a bias towards liquidating shorts. But at least right now, I do think, given the pretty strong pump that we've seen, we could see it pull back at least a little bit. We do see about a $700 move to the downside, does liquidate about $450 million worth of leverage. So, it's possible. We'll have to see kind of what that looks. As we can see from the chart here, we did see that pull back at the end of last week, obviously hitting this support at about the 52.5 range and then bounced up. We can see here that it then kind of did a run up. I think when we looked, I think this was on Saturday maybe on my last video, we were sitting, I think, somewhere in this range. And we could see that, that we did see a bit of a pullback and then a further pullback, but then we bounced up and hit this support right up here. This whole zone kind of in this area is kind of an overall liquidity zone that we're seeing. So overall, we have seen some pretty nice movement ranging within this zone. I would imagine, just given this really strong pump that we've seen, we will see this come back. You can see I did come in on a short trade. I did keep my stop loss pretty tight, actually right above this line, just because we never know. They could continue to run through this line. I kind of think, just given the gap here that we're seeing in liquidity, as well as what we're seeing on the liquidations charts, again, the 54,700 is about right down here. So it's definitely not too far of a move back. So this is what I'm at least looking for right now. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, I do have my stop loss super tight, just in case things go poorly, which it can. Anything can happen in this market. So, and I did go in relatively small on this one, just because this is one where it's hard to say where exactly this will go, especially given the fact that we're bouncing kind of right on a line of resistance at this point. So anyway, if you're interested in trading as well, you can go to Margex. Margex does allow for up to 100x leverage, which is definitely really nice when we're playing on these smaller moves. Because like I said, even a $700 move down on the spot market, that's pretty much nothing, but with leverage, that's a pretty decent chunk of change. So if you're interested, there is a link in my description below. Go ahead and sign up. They have up to $10,000 of deposit bonuses, as well as they're continuing to do their $500,000 Caspa airdrop. So moving on, as we can see, well, from the Bitcoin chart previously, but also kind of sitting along that line, we have seen a pretty strong bump. We can see Tau right here, Fetch is another here, we've got Render over here. So, AI tokens bouncing pretty well overall, but I mean, everything is bouncing pretty well overall in the market at this point. So looking at the Fear and Greed Index, we can see that we are still sitting in fear. Now, if we're to zoom in on this a tiny bit closer, I would imagine, given this kind of short uptick in price, we would start to see fear, because we're sitting almost on the edge of extreme fear. I could imagine seeing this moving up maybe towards the higher end of fear, possibly into neutral, depending on what happens with this move overall. But I would imagine that this comes up a little bit. How far, I don't actually know, but this is just something to keep an eye on. So moving on to the topic of today, we've got Fetch.ai. And so this is Fetch.ai's site. Now, this is essentially like the site that is linked for the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. So I would imagine that Singularity Net and Ocean are probably going to be kind of coalescing under this site. Whether they change their domain from Fetch.ai to Artificial Superintelligence or something like that, I think remains to be seen. But right now, at least on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko and all those, it still does refer out to Fetch.ai. This, I guess you can call it consolidation or merger process, is definitely something that's going to take a minute. So, it's not going to happen all, immediately overnight. But at least as of right now, things are moving along, things are progressing through that process. So I know as of right now that the claim is already available for those of you on the Ethereum network to merge your Singularity or Ocean tokens into or exchange them into Fetch.ai tokens. So anything on Polygon or any other chains I don't believe is available yet, but it will be, it sounds like, in the future. And then from what I understand is there's going to be a kind of a further migration where all of these Fetch tokens will then move to Artificial Superintelligence Alliance tokens themselves. So what we can see from Fetch here is what they essentially allow is they allow for people to create their own AI agents, and then they also are essentially developing a marketplace for people to market their agents, right? So if I was, for example, let's say I wanted to create an automated travel agent, and my travel agent, you essentially could say, take me on a trip to Europe, and then it'll do the rest, right? If I were to do that, I could then essentially put this on the marketplace in which other people could use it, and potentially I'd be able to monetize it somehow, or maybe if I were to like open source it, then people could continue to iterate on that and make better improvements to this AI agent. So what we can see is their tech stack is obviously including a lot of some of the huge names within the AI space right now. So they definitely are well positioned overall to do fairly well, it seems. And at least from my perception of the market, this post-merger especially, Fetch / Artificial Superintelligence Alliance, they are kind of like, they're the decentralized AI type crypto, right? So this is one to definitely keep an eye on. I would imagine this would be the one that kind of sets the tone for decentralized AI movement, both in terms of just price and product market fit, both in price as well as product market fit, and just kind of setting the tone for what decentralized AI can do. Obviously, as they start to find success, and I would imagine kind of regardless of whether they find success or not, we'll start to see more decentralized AI projects, just because I do think it is a pretty hot space. But right now, these guys are kind of definitely kind of setting the marker, at least I would say for right now. Graph is probably the other fairly large one within the space. So, but what we can see is, you've got they're essentially creating like a framework for you to develop multi-agent AI systems, as well as like essentially you can hook all of these together, right? And that is, I think, probably the next move within AI, right? There's certain things that LLMs can do that like are really useful, but they also aren't super good at maybe more like quantitative or technical type analysis. And so if you could take like an LLM and hook it into like a super technical AI, that would be super useful, and make sure that they like communicate properly. These are the types of things that I would imagine we would see here shortly in the future. After this, scrolling down here, we can see that essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to build a platform that allows you to string different AI agents together to create some sort of valuable system for that, right? I don't know that we're to the point of companies being completely automated or autonomous, but I do think, depending on how some of the use cases of these agents work out, we should be able to see some pretty interesting, I would say maybe semi-autonomous companies coming to pass here in the short term. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how people do that and kind of how that develops. But I do think Fetch has the possibility of being one of those companies that really kind of facilitates a lot of that. And it's probably one of the main like non-big tech companies, at least thus far, that is kind of making progress, particularly within the crypto space. So that's another thing that I wanted to mention as well. So looking at the coin market cap, we can see over the past year, obviously, it's done super well. As you can see, the ticker is still FET, but they have changed their name and their logo to the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. So that's kind of what we've seen there. Also, as we can see in the height of earlier this year, when things in crypto just more generally was more popular, we could see they were sitting at a price of about 325. We've now come down to about 118, 120 in this area. So there's definitely some way to come back up to previous highs. But remember, we are kind of in a summer lull, and when a lot of money goes away, this is what can happen, right? Especially in crypto, if we were to consider this point kind of the low of the cycle, which, obviously we could always go lower, but potentially it seems like this could be it. We're sitting at 81 cents, which is like, a good 40% higher than what we were before the run up, that happened in March and April. So this is something to keep an eye on. Obviously, I think from a price perspective, they look like they're doing pretty well. Community sentiment is obviously relatively high. The other thing I want to bring up as well is circulating supply is almost fully diluted, which is really good because that means there's a lower possibility of getting dumped on by investors and token unlocks and all this type of stuff as it comes around. So anyway, that's one thing. I just want to kind of go over a quick overview of the Fetch.ai / Artificial Superintelligence Alliance token. Overall, I think this is obviously a very introductory type of video toward Fetch. I do plan on doing, potentially some future videos discussing their platform a little bit further, as well as maybe some price predictions and things of that sort as well. So, but overall, in order to keep the video not too long, I just want to give a general overview of where Fetch is sitting at, what we think some of the possibilities are for it in the future, as well as a lot of information surrounding this recent merger, because that, I would say, is pretty big news in terms of the decentralized AI space. So anyway, if you did find this information useful, please do give me a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. I still am on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So, I'm hoping, my initial goal was to get there by the end of October, but just based on some of the growth I've seen recently, I'm hoping that maybe I can make that happen by the end of September, which would be super cool. So if you want to help me, achieve my goal there, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, feel free to reach out to me in the comment section. I do reply to all of my comments. So, if you want to interact with me, that's a great way to do that. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.